Well, guys, good evening. Welcome to the second part of our session of our second week. Of course, as usual, the typical aspects like to refresh our memory about. First of all, don't forget to continue working on the virtual campus. Although it's not something that I assess and evaluate, I think that it is important like to remind you that. I hope that you remembered the homework that we had from Friday, just like to refresh your memory. Remember that the idea was to choose the incorrect word, well, statement actually from this part. Well, we will check that in a moment. And of course, one of the things that also we didn't have the time to do on Friday, as I was telling you last week, because we already have the speaking part this week, I am going to share with you, well, I guess that I didn't have this ready. This same, let's say, document that I had shared with you the other day. The idea, guys, is that you are going now, let's say, officially to make the adjustments in order to decide the people you will be working with. I know that anyway, you know each other really well, but the intention is that from the very beginning, you know the people you will be working with. Of course, keep in mind that the grade is individual, so it doesn't really have an impact, or it doesn't matter who you are working with. Every grade, it's different, of course, based on your performance. So there you have the slide. I'm gonna give you until Wednesday, maybe to decide, no, until Wednesday. So you decide the people you will be working with. In case that some names are missing, or maybe in one of the groups, there is only one person, I will make some adjustments. Last cycle, sorry, we didn't have to make many changes. So I hope that we can keep on like on the same line. So I'm gonna take attendance so we can check the homework that we had on Friday. And of course, we can begin then the topic that we have for our unit 11. In this case, talking about crime and punishment, that would be in terms of vocabulary. And then talking about obligation and permission in the past. Let me find the chart so we can start the attendance. Today is the 24th. Gerson Arismendi.
Present, teacher.
Okay. Keiner Baez.
I'm here, teacher.
Okay. Jean-Claude Barrera.
Present, teacher.
Okay. Yesid Calderon.
Present, teacher.
Okay. Natalia Camargo.
Present, teacher.
Okay. William Andrés Casrillón. Not here for the moment. Andrés Camilo Correa.
Hi, teacher, present.
Hi. Andrés Corredor.
Hi, teacher, present.
Okay. Listo. Silvia Natalia Cuellar.
Present, teacher.
Okay. Johan Alberto Duque.
Present, teacher.
There you go. There is someone waiting. Elkin Darío Fernández. Yes, Johan, I heard. Elkin Darío. I think that he just took part of the session. He will let me know eventually. Julián Jesús Figueroa.
Present, teacher.
Okay. Ginette Valentina Fontecha.
Present, teacher.
Okay. Carlos Andrés Galán.
Present, teacher. Teacher.
Okay, Carlos, yes. Marily Juliet Gamboa.
Present, teacher.
Okay. José Alejandro Gómez.
Here, teacher.
Okay, there is some music over there. Thank you, Andres.
Yes, teacher.
Okay, that was you. No problem. Lizeth Carolina Tarazona.
Present, teacher.
Okay, and Brian Camilo Vargas. Not here for the moment. Elkin is here. So technically the ones that are absent are William Andres Castrillon and Ryan Camilo for the moment, of course. Okay. Well, guys, before we actually start with tonight's topic, as I was telling you, we continue talking about obligation and permission. One of the things that we were studying yesterday, and because of time we didn't finish it, was talking about obligation and permission in present. We were having a look at different models. The good thing is that tonight we continue talking about models, but in past. You will see that the difference is very simple to identify, and it's like minimum, to be honest. And remember that to select here the answer, it was based on the context provided. We were working on a listening exercise, some people talking about rules and regulations, some pictures. So that was our point of reference. Let's see, we already had the example. Sorry. And remember that the instructions said that the idea was to cross out the incorrect. So it, once again, may look a little bit obvious, but the incorrect, making sure that the statement, although grammatically correct, it doesn't make sense to the context that was already provided, okay? I really, really hope that you remembered. Mabeli, from the first group, which statement was the incorrect based on the context? When I say context, remember we were talking about these pictures, the listening that we did. That was long, by the way. So, Mabeli, which one is incorrect?
Number 1, teacher. What is
Mhm.
incorrect?
Yes,
You can play ball games here.
very good. This one doesn't match on the information that we had already shared. Okay, sorry. Very good, Mabeli. Let's have a look at number 2. Number 2, Jessit, please.
Okay, teacher. You ought to use your phone in this lesson?
Lesson. Remember the pronunciation? Ash, qué horror, me quedó horrendo. The pronunciation. I want to just go like this. You already know. Remember the pronunciation of this model?
Ought.
Well, actually, we don't divide the two words. It sounds like hora. And what is a synonym for this model, for hora?
Must.
Like a must? Well, it looks like a way too dramatic obligation. No, there is a better sibling for hora.
It's like have.
There is a better sibling.
Should.
Begins with S. Yes, should. Should is more like connected to the whole idea. Remember, usually should, we said that is used to talk about advice, but in this context, you know, talking about obligation and permission, it looks like a good idea that I have to follow. So goes more on that line. But once again, because it looks like this good idea that I'm imposing, maybe it's like a half. It is not incorrect, but a better suit is should, you know, just in case. Let's have a look at number 3. Let me ask Jean-Claude, what do you have in number 3?
Yes, teacher. Number 3. You don't have to drive at 120 kilometers per hour on motorways.
In that case, on motorways. Well, what the idea when we make it negative, they have to.
Yo entendí que era que no tienes que ir a 120 kilómetros.
Yeah, like that is the translation. But remember that when we say you don't have to, because it is not an obligation, like if you do it or if you don't do it, it's okay. Remember, guys, that we are looking for the incorrect one.
Mm,
Let's ask for some help, maybe to Gerson. Do you have the same in number 3, Gerson? Remember, we're looking for the incorrect. The one that doesn't match the information that we shared on Friday.
Number 3, teacher. I
Mhm.
have the second idea is mean you have to drive at 120 kilometers per hour on most motorways.
Very good. Yeah, because if we say you have to, it's like it is an obligation for you to drive it on that amount of kilometers per hour, right? Remember, that was the context that we had on Friday. You don't have to, it's like, okay, actually that happens. In some cases, some people go 120 kilometers, some people go 180. So the incorrect one was that you have to, because it is not an obligation. You decide how fast you go, right? Yeah, the incorrect. And we finish with number 4, Lisette.
You shouldn't show ID to prove your age.
Very good. Once again, that was the idea. So that is why I was clarifying like a lot in terms of grammar. Notice that all are grammatically correct. And that is one of the things with models that we have to be very careful about. We really need the context to decide which is the correct one to use. Let's say how strong we want to sound, like the type of obligation that we want like to display, let's put it like that. That is more like the idea on that one. Very good. Well, guys, that was the homework. You already did this part. We're going to continue with the second part. In this case, is going to be, let's say, combined, you know. First, we're going to have a look at these questions that we have in here. In terms of vocabulary, we will be talking about crime and punishment. And as you already noticed from the beginning, let me share it one more time. We will be talking about obligation and permission in the past. So the modals that we know, but in past. I'm going back here to the book. It says working groups, but we're gonna do it here as a whole group. And guys, I'm gonna read these questions that we have in here. It says, what is the criminal justice system like in your country? Well, what was the criminal justice system like in your country 200 years ago? Probably in case that we have some lawyers or law students, they can give us like a very, I'm not gonna say detailed, but a very clear look, you know, so we can have like somehow an idea of what it was like. And the second question, what was it harsher or more lenient than it is today? Guys, what could be a synonym for harsher? Or do you remember what harsher means?
Hard.
Hard, very good. And then the opposite, like in the whole other corner, would be lenient. Guys, do you remember the meaning of lenient? Or a synonym for lenient?
No, teacher.
No, teacher.
Lenient would be a little bit more flexible, you know? So harsher being strict or more strict, and lenient being like more flexible. So going back to the whole question again, talking about the justice system. Was it harsher or more strict or more flexible than it is today? So guys, any of you that know about laws, could be because you are a lawyer or you are a student of law or you are a fan of laws, would you share with us how the justice system was and how harsh or lenient it is compared to today? Do we have any lawyers in here? Nobody. I was expecting a lawyer in this group. Well, guys, probably from what you remember from your high school history classes. What do you remember about that? I'm going to rely on your really good memory on this one, guys. Johan, do you know anything about that? Or you don't know, or you don't remember? Because maybe we don't remember.
Repeat this. I don't understand.
I'm talking about these two questions. Am I displaying the book? Maybe I'm confusing you. Yes, there it is, the book. I'm asking about if you probably know or if you have read something about our justice system here. How was it 200 years, or how was it 200 years ago? Have you heard or have you read about it, Johan?
Teacher, I'm not remember.
Okay, Johan, don't worry. Yeah, I'm just like picking your mind, guys, in case that you do. Okay, Andres Felipe, you raise your hand. Could you give us a light?
Yes, I can tell that more than 200 years ago, the system of the justice system, it was more like the Catholic system. And the name was the Inquisition.
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 Mhm.
I know. I have seen many videos about the Black Legend of Spain, from Spain. But the thing what I found is that the Spain was the first country to create the law system for many things. They
Mhm.
they create many of the just systems that we have nowadays
Mhm.
with the Inquisition.
Inquisition.
The Inquisition.
Mhm. Okay, Andres. Nice. Thank you for sharing the information. Jose, you also raise your hand.
Yes, teacher. The justice system of Nueva Granada
Mm.
had several courts and forms of justice. For example, the highest court of the land was the Royal Audiencia, which had jurisdiction over both civil and criminal matters. Also, lower courts, such as the Corregimiento courts, had jurisdiction over minor civil and criminal cases. And, well, in the Nueva Granada, have a unique form of justice was the use of indigenous law in some areas of the country. So
Okay.
that I remember about the system of criminal justice.
Okay, Jose, thank you very much. I would like to ask you also a second question, if you don't mind. In your perspective, was it harsher or more lenient than it is today?
I think that is more harsher.
It's harsher.
Yes, because they have a system of races. So the discrimination was highest. Sorry,
Higher.
higher. Yes, me confundí en eso.
Okay. Thank you, Jose.
Vale, thank you, teacher.
Okay, guys, of course, these aspects very specific about history and stuff tend to be a little bit more complicated. Not because you can't, it's because we have like to go back in memory and also to remember a lot of details about it. But of course, as you can imagine, it is playing as part of the context of what we are going to be reading tonight. Actually, tonight we will be working on reading like a lot, you know. As you notice already from the book, sorry, We have actually 3 different exercises to be done with the 3 texts that you will find already. No, that you have already seen because you already have the book. Oh, by the way, guys, we're talking about pages 110 and 111. What I did was just to take the images in here to organize a little bit better every single part that we will be doing tonight. We're going to read this text. The title says The Harsh World of 18th Century Justice. In this case, we're going to focus in Britain, as you can imagine. Of course, talking about 200 years ago. What we are going to do first, although I know that you noticed that we have some words in bold, we're going to answer these 2 questions. Elkin, could you read question number 1 and question number 2, please?
Okay, teacher. Number 1, what crimes resulted in capital punishment? And the second question, what was considered a more lenient option?
Lenient.
Lenient option.
That's it, and capital punishment. You'll notice while we read the text that actually the information is very easy to find. Let's say that the questions are literal, but of course we're gonna read it as usual. Silvia Natalia, please could you read the first paragraph?
Okay, teacher. Criminal justice? Justice? I don't know how to pronounce that word.
Justice.
Justice in the 8th century was a harsh business. There was no community service and few criminals were even sent to prison. If you committed a crime and were arrested. For many crimes, you could expect the death penalty.
That's it. Thank you very much. 18. You said 8.
Yes, teacher. Sorry, 18. Yeah.
Okay, Sylvia. Thank you. Kainer, could you read the second paragraph? At the end of until result in death.
Okay, teacher. At the end of the 18th century, there were over 200 crimes that could be punished by hanging, as well as serious crime like murder and kidnapping. These include vulgarity, robbery, shoplifting, and mugging. Even if you were caught cutting down a tree or stealing a rabbit, it could result in death.
Okay. Punished. Oh, you notice already that here we have a lot of words related to vocabulary, in this case from the context of crimes. You will be looking for the meaning of those words in a moment. And we finish with this, let's say, description of this justice system in Britain with the final paragraph. Let's start, Jeanette, with if the judge until good behavior.
Okay, teacher. If the judge was more lenient, the defendant might be sentenced to transportation instead. This meant traveling by ship to Australia. Conditions on the ships were terrible and many prisoners died on the way. If they lived, they had to do at least 7 years hard labor before they could be released for good behavior.
Behavior. Labor. And A and U in Australia always sounds like O. We don't say aus. That would be Spanish, like Australia. It would be Australia. Okay, very good. That was it. A very short summary of how the justice system was in Britain 200 years ago. Remember, guys, that first you're going to answer these 2 questions. As I was telling you, the questions are pretty simple, but anyway, I'm going to give you a few minutes for you to find the answer in the text. I'm going to read them again. What crimes resulted in capital punishment and what was considered a more lenient option? I'm sure that you can scan to find the answer. Anyway, I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Okay. Guys, did you have any questions about the instructions?
Yes, teacher, which page is that?
Ah, yeah, sorry, 110. Yeah, the first, let me display the book for a moment. The first text that we had in here, that's the one in page 110. This will be the second, but we don't need it yet. For the moment, only this one, okay? Let me go back to the presentation. Well, 4 minutes better, starting now.
Teacher,
Yes?
what is the difference between burglary and robbery?
Burglary is when that person goes inside a building. You know, usually, unfortunately, when that happens, like the guy goes into a house, like breaking windows or like a door, that is considered burglary. Going inside that place. Because what we consider like robbery would be like the most general word talking about that. But in English, we have different words like for every single event. Let's put it like that. Robbery is
Okay.
like the general one.
Okay, teacher.
Okay. 1 minute left, by the way. Well, guys, time's up. So, Andres Correa, what crimes resulted in capital punishment? According to the text, there are 6. Tell me.
Okay, teacher. According to the text, a capital punishment was the penalty for many crimes in the 18th century. Yes, I think so.
Indeed, but tell me the list of crimes, please.
Okay, including a serious offense, like a murder, kidnapping,
Kidnapping, murder,
robbery,
Mm-hmm.
burglary,
Yes.
and what else?
There are two more.
Child life fighting, child lifting.
Shoplifting.
Yeah. And mugging.
And mugging. Those were the ones. Thank you, Andres. And the more lenient option, Julian.
The second one? Or the
Yes.
first one?
No,
Okay.
the second. Yeah, because Andres already gave us the list.
Mm, I don't know, because in the last they was sent to Australia for 7 years. I don't know if it's worse worse than the death.
You could articulate a little bit more because, yes, not necessarily for 7 years, like after 7 years, they were released, but definitely they were sent to Australia. Well, they were released if they had good behavior, right? But yes, in conclusion, the transportation to Australia was considered like the more lenient possibility,
Yeah.
although we already know that some of them died. Okay, well, guys, I'm gonna go back to the book. But before, well, because here it looks, it's easier for me to display. Now we are actually going to, let's say, pay a little bit of extra attention to the words that we have here in bold. We have community service, criminals, sent to prison, committing a crime, were, well, arrested, death penalty, well, all the words in bold that we have in here. With those words that we had there, that remember that in our book is the first text that we had in here, you are going to classify them, okay? We already know that the category that we have tonight is crime. That is like the big category. We're gonna divide it into 4 different into 4 different categories. We have crimes. For example, we have murder. We have punishments. Do you remember, guys, the meaning of punishments?
Castigos.
That's it. Very good. We have verbs, in this case, talking about the actions themselves. And then, of course, we are talking about people. In this case, our example is the judge. So from the text that we had already read, in that moment, our attention was focused on answering the questions. Now, what you're going to do is to classify them in all these 4 categories, okay? Make sure, in this case, of course, that our intention is to recognize those grammatical categories. For example, it would be incorrect in verbs to put like burglary, because burglary in this case is talking about a type of crime. Or for example, in punishment, writing defendant, when defendant is about people, right? So although all the words are somehow connected, make sure that you organize them well in the correct category that it belongs to. Let me refresh your memory. Where are you going to find this vocabulary? On the first text, this one that we have in our book on page 110. Only the words in bold, okay? Guys, do you have any questions about the instructions? No questions?
No, teacher. No, teacher.
Okay, very good. I'm gonna display this. Well, you already have the book. Anyway, I'm sure that you will write down or anything, the different words. I'm gonna give you in this case 7 minutes. Probably you need extra time. If after the 7 minutes you haven't finished, you let me know and maybe we can add 2 more minutes to make sure that all you guys can organize the words. Let's start. 7 minutes is starting now. Okay, guys, thumbs up. Did you finish?
Yes, teacher.
Okay, Sylvia, thank you. Let's see the chat. That as well. Great. Well, guys, let's start with crimes. Andres Felipe Corredor, we already had murder. Which other crimes from the text we could take? Andres Felipe?
Yes, teacher, sorry.
That's okay. So, from the first category, Andres, crimes, we already had murder. Which other crimes did you include there?
Mm,
Andres.
Is according with the text, right? Robert?
Robbery?
Mm, kill?
Was it that on the text? I didn't see it. Andres, did you do it? Because I have the sensation that you're improvising.
No, I
And I
didn't.
hate improvising.
Sorry, teacher.
That's okay. So, Carlos, we already had murder and robbery. Which other could we add to the list?
Okay, teacher. Kidnapping,
Uh-huh.
burglary,
Burglary.
shoplifting,
Uh-huh.
mugging.
That's it. Very good. Thank you, Carlos. Well, Carlos had already asked like the difference between burglary and robbery. I would like to know, guys, if you maybe looked for the meaning of shoplifting or you remember, I'm sure.
Yes, teacher.
Shoplifting
Okay.
is like
Carterazo.
like
Robo
the
No.
yes, no, yeah, como
Silvia, you
dentro
tell us
del
your shoplifting in English because you are B1, of course. You're gonna describe what shoplifting is.
is
Or like an
in,
example, if you prefer,
in
of
a
course.
shop, in a shop, when a person like mugging you, but in a shop, right?
Mugging you in a shop?
Like,
you're combining two
no,
things,
no,
Silvia.
right, like rob. Como al que lo roban a uno dentro de un...
No, no, Silvia. No es que la roban adentro, no.
Like, que roban. Teacher, sorry.
That's okay,
I can't
Silvia.
say it in English.
Okay.
Can I say but in Spanish?
No. No.
Okay.
Sorry, Silvia. I know that sometimes are really annoying, but that's the idea, you know, like to make you try. It's not like you get robbed inside the place. I guess, Carlos, you were going also to say what shoplifting is, right? Carlos? Or Carlos declined.
Okay, teacher. What?
You were going to say the meaning of shoplifting, right? If I'm not mistaken, what is shoplifting? But of course in English, don't tell me in Spanish. Or an example, if it is easier for you to describe it with an example.
When you inside in a shop and take things within paid.
Without paying?
Without pay?
Yes, that's the idea. Unfortunately, that is something that is very common. Well, in different stores, not necessarily like in grocery stores, but also in places where you can buy clothes. Lately, no. Usually there are like different videos on the internet that the people like, they are looking for a shirt and then they distract the owner or the clerk and they take the shirt and put it inside and they leave the place and they don't pay. That's more like the idea of shoplifting. What about mugging? Elkin said that in Spanish, but I hope that you can provide like a definition in English.
Excuse me.
That's okay.
Teacher, I have a small question respectively between two words in this vocabulary of crime and punishment. What's the difference between burglary, excuse me, and robbery?
You know, Carlos had already asked the question, so I'm gonna ask Carlos to tell you what the difference is.
Okay, teacher. The burglary is when you inside in a place or a house or a building and take objects. And robbery is a more general concept about
In the street or
yes, a general concept about robbery a person, for example.
Rob
Is
a
correct,
person.
teacher?
Robbery a person, no, because it's not a verb. Like a person got robbed,
okay.
for example. Or because
rob
it is
a
a
person.
noun, robbery is a noun. So there was a robbery on street 15. Let's put it like that. But that's
Okay.
like, yes, Elkin.
yes, that's okay. And then burglary is the activity that apartamenteros realizan. Excuse me.
That's the one. That's the name in English. So, Elkin, I was asking you about mugging.
Mugging, asalto, atraco is.
Well, I was expecting like a description in English, but yeah, that's basically like you are on the street and maybe you don't notice and someone takes your wallet or your cell phone from your bag or from your pocket. That's more, and usually that there is violence. Yes.
Teacher, I have a question. The word steal is like a general word like robbery. Sorry. Yes, robbery. Steal.
Well, it looks like you already answered your question. That is, they
yes,
are kind
okay.
of synonyms. At the end of the day, you are correct.
Okay.
Let's see what Julian says. All burglaries are robbery, but all robberies aren't burglaries. Excellent. That's a way to describe it because robbery is like the more general concept, you know? I'm gonna change the context to move to the other category. I don't wanna like annoy you anymore with this. Like for example, when we're talking about meat, you know, that it is divided into beef, pork, lamb. So more or less it's pretty much the same idea, you know? Meat would be like the very general concept and the different type of animal would be like a very more specific way to talk about it. In case that you are hungry, of course. Let's change of category. We have punishments now. For punishments, I would like to ask Jeanette, who's still number 3. You haven't changed your name.
Oh, yes. Teacher. Punishment. Punishment. Community service. Sent to prison.
But sent is more like a verb,
verb.
Jeanette. There is one more. Well,
penalty.
Exactly. And one more.
And hanging.
Excellent. Very good. Let's have a look at verbs. We already had one, which, well, actually two. To be sent to prison and to commit a crime. Those were the 2 verbs in here. Jean-Claude, which other verbs did you include?
Okay, teacher. To be sent to prison, to commit a crime, were arrested, be punished, were caught,
Punished. Well,
punished,
okay. Well, I will tell you in a moment.
were caught, be sentenced, be released.
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 Also, Jean-Claude, why for arrested and caught, you didn't change the verb. You said where. Just in case. It will be also with be, right? Be arrested and be caught. Well, to be. All of them with to be.
Okay, teacher.
Very good. So in terms of words, Gerson, we already had the judge. Which other words are for people?
For people, teacher.
Yes.
Judge, criminals, prisoners.
One more.
Defendant.
Defendant. That's it. Perfect, Gerson. Thank you very much. Very good, guys. There is a lot of vocabulary. I'm sure that you are already familiarized with most of the words, not to say like with all of them. We only have to be very careful with the, grammatical category. Probably is not a very interesting topic for you, but you notice or you already know that specifically talking about the exam, that there is one part that is actually related to that grammar, that you have to choose the word that actually fits that space that is being presented. So we have to decide, for example, if it is a verb, or if we're talking about a person, or if it is a noun. So this type of classification of words actually help us to those exercises in particular. So let me go back to the presentation. That is pretty much the same that we have on the book. So first of all, talking about like the justice in general in Britain, talking about the 18th century. We're like starting to narrow it down. Then the second reading that we have says a famous criminal from the 18th century. In this case, as you notice, there are some spaces on the text. The idea, guys, is that you're going to complete the text with the words that we have in here. Notice that they go or they are combined. Let's put it like that. For example, was arrested goes together, right? Then we have was hanged, committed crime, got caught, burgling, shoplifting, robbed, and criminal. For this exercise, well, there are two exercises that we will be doing in breakout rooms, but in this case, this first exercise is going to be done, let's say, a little bit fast. Of course, guys, what is going to be the idea? You have to decide the proper words for each space, making sure that they make sense. Not only the grammatical part, as you already noticed, most of them have that passive voice structure. So technically, in terms of grammar, everything looks like similar. Let's make sure that it actually makes sense, okay? I'm gonna create the groups. We don't have repeated names tonight. Yes. Let me send you. Me salió mejor todavía. Give me a second while I check. I know that Julian, but maybe there is another name and I forget. Tan. Creo que ya. Yes, guys. Any questions about the instruction? Okay. Well, guys, it's a very short text. Actually, it's kind of simple in terms of how the story is being presented. In the moment that everybody goes to the breakout rooms, you're going to have 10 minutes, only 10 minutes to complete it. Remember that we are still working on our book on page 110 is the second text. Let's start. Let's see. Elkin, Jose. Well, guys, welcome back. Let's see how you completed the text. This is like, the typical exercise of the exam that you have to complete the text. So it is a good way to practice. That was a good thing. Let's start. We have 6 groups. Group number 1, we had Jose, Silvia, and Yesit. Jose, would you read how you completed the first, let's say the first paragraph, until from a shop, okay?
Yes, teacher. Give me 1 second. Es que no me está cargando.
My screen?
No, teacher. My book.
Oh, okay.
Yes, teacher, yeah.
Okay.
In the spring? Yes?
Read the first part from Jack Shepherd until from a shop.
Okay, teacher. Jack Shepherd was born into a very poor family in 1702. When he was 6, he started to work, and at the age of 15, he became an apprentice carpenter. Carpenter. In the spring of 1723, he committed his first crime. He stole 2 silver spoons from a shop.
That's it. Thank you,
From a
Jose.
shop, yes, teacher.
Good. So in conclusion, committed crime. That was on number 1. Let's continue with part 2. That will be from he wasn't until as a carpenter. In this case, I would like to ask from group number 6, Julián Jesús. Usted lee.
He wasn't.
Yes, from that one.
Okay. He was in car and he's moved from burglary to no.
Burglary from
He's-
burglary doesn't make sense.
Sí. Yes, sorry. This wasn't the most difficult for me. He moved from Robert?
No.
No, I don't.
You don't have it?
I don't have it. Shoplifting? No, no. For me, it's
Actually, it is shoplifting. Well, the thing is that you are guessing, and that was not the idea. But based on the first part, that the guy took some spoons from a store, that it is shoplifting, and then he moved to burglary. Could you finish this paragraph? He usually...
okay. Went from shoplifting to burglary. He usually stole from the houses where he was working as a carpenter.
Carpenter. That's it. Group number 3, Elkin, Kainer, and Mabely. Mabely, begin please from shepherd until houses.
Shepherd was first arrested in February 1724, but he escaped within 3 hours and continued burgling
houses. Very good. The next line, a very short one for group number 4, Jeanette.
Yes, teacher. From where?
From he until escaped, a very short one.
Okay, teacher. He got caught 3 more times in 1724, but each time he escaped,
That's it.
then
That's it. He got caught. Okay, the pronunciation, but good. That's the answer, basically. Let's continue. Well, you finish and then escape. From group number 2, Jean-Claude, you are going to read from then until final time.
Okay, teacher. Then on 31st October, Shepard robbed a shop and stole a black silk suit. He was arrested the next day for the final time.
Okay. Black suit. Okay, and robbed.
Okay, teacher.
That's it. And from group number 5, sorry, Natalia, finish the story, please.
Okay, teacher. 2 weeks later, he was hanged. 200,000 people, 1/3 of London's population attended his funeral. Shepard had become a celebrity criminal.
Was hanged.
And
Like D at the end. Do you remember maybe last cycle that I shared with you like an image with the pronunciation? In this case, it doesn't sound. So not necessary, not hanged, hanged. Like a very strong D at the end. Very good. Thank you. Natalia, we have shared a lot of vocabulary tonight. This is a lot of information. We're going to move to the final reading exercise. I told you from the beginning, tonight is whole reading and of course, focusing on vocabulary. In this case, focusing on the grammatical aspect a little bit. I'm going to rearrange the groups and you're going to do 2 things. You know, this is the third and final text. First, although it has some blanks, you're going to answer the 3 questions that appear in here. Let's read what the questions are about. Johan Alberto, could you read questions 1, 2, and 3, please?
We were people in the 18th century sent to prison. Why did some people never leave? What is the connection between prison and the British novelist Charlie Dickens?
Charles Dickens. Very good. Well, of course you notice, thank you, Johan. Of course you know that I'm taking these activities from the book. Also, on the book, this is now page 111. It is telling us the information that you need to complete the text. I'm going to read that instruction in this case. It says complete the text with the verb below to express obligation. There may be more than one possibility. On Friday, we were talking about modals and obligations for present. Tonight, we're talking about modals and obligation in past. So we have had to, didn't have to, could or couldn't, were allowed to, weren't allowed to. Of course not. Different from the previous exercise that like the 2 words were together, you have to decide if it is had to or if it is didn't have to. If it is could or couldn't. It is not like we have to use both possibilities. So just we gotta be careful on that part. And of course, probably something that it is very important to keep in mind, there may be more than one possibility. Once again, the context is going to play a key role in here. That is why first you are going to focus on the questions. Once again, you will notice that the blank spaces don't really affect the whole meaning. And then complete the blank spaces with the modals that we have in here. So keep in mind, based on the information that is being presented on the text, what looks like an obligation, what looks something that is probably not necessary to do or wasn't necessary to do, or the people didn't have the permission. I mean, that is something that you are going to discover, okay? Guys, do you have any questions about the instructions? Okay, I'm gonna rearrange the groups. Let me see the chat. Okay. Retired is not the word, but okay. Mm-hmm. One, two, three, one, two, three, one, two, three. Very good. Mhm. You know that it always takes me a few minutes to arrange you guys. Okay, I think that's it. I hope. Well, guys, in this case, because there are two different activities to do, first to answer the questions and then to complete the text, you are going to have 15 minutes. We officially finish with the reading part of the night. So let's start. Elkin, Jose. Jose. Well, guys, welcome back. Our final exercise of the night, of course. First of all, you had to answer these questions and then to complete with the modals. I'm sure that at some parts probably was a little bit tricky, but once again, the context, well, you already know the modals in present. The idea was to, let's say, change them into past. Let's begin with the questions. So first, let's start with group number 5. We had Johann, Julian, and Keiner. Keiner, why were people in the 18th century sent to prison?
Teacher, people sent to prison if
Were
they
sent.
have this. Were sent to prison if they have this.
Very good. That was the one. Group number 2, Natalia. Question 2, why did some people never leave?
Teacher, because they couldn't pay the debt or they staying in prison.
In prison.
Prison.
Very good. And well, Jean-Claude, you were abandoned in room 6. What is the connection between prison and the British novelist Charles Dickens?
Yes, teacher. The connection is about his father was in prison and he had to leave the school to get a job and support his family.
That's it. Okay, that was the first part, answering the questions, and on the second part, the idea was to complete with the modals. And of course, now we are going to read. So, ¿se me hicieron los grupos? Yes. Gerson, you're going to begin from group number 1. Okay? So in that case, you're going to begin in Britain after we're in prison.
Okay, teacher. I read this part, okay?
Sorry?
Sí, in Britain.
In Britain.
In Britain, in the 18th century, people were often sent to prison if they had debts. However, even though they were there because they were in debt, they didn't have to pay for everything while they were in prison.
They didn't have to pay, says group number 1.
Yes, teacher.
Let's ask from group number 3 if you agree or disagree. Because they didn't have to pay, that means like, no problem. You can stay here and everything is free. Natalia, you raise your hand. Yes.
Teacher, I disagree. They had to pay for everything.
Exactly. Of course, without the extra information, any grammatical combination could work. But then after reading like the second part or the next info, we could, let's say, assume that it was necessary for them to pay. So it was an obligation. So in conclusion, number 1, as Natalia said, had to pay. Let's continue with the next part. It says if, in this case, Andres Felipe, if they had some, well, I didn't tell you until which part, sorry, would be under war.
Okay. If they have some money, they could use the prison restaurant, and they didn't have to wear the heavy metal chains than other
prisoners were. Very good. So could is one good version for number 2. Guys, what is the other, like the sibling that could has? It is longer, but at the end of the day means the same. Maybe you remember from the other day when we talk about can and the other similar version of can.
Cool.
Good is okay, number 2 is perfect. But we had also another possibility that is pretty much the same meaning of could.
Be allowed to.
be allowed to. Very good. Well, and in this case, just in case, we had to make the transformation, so it would be were allowed to. In this case, they are synonyms, of course, talking about the affirmative form, were allowed to or was allowed to in case that was singular and could mean the same. They also mean the same when they are negative. They don't have any restriction. Let's continue with number 4. In this case, I would like to ask Mavely and other prisoners. We go now from some better off until the end of that paragraph. Leave prison.
Some better off prisoners were allowed to leave.
Good. Continue.
Me perdí.
We are tired
Okay,
already, I know.
Live outside the prison and they could get married and even work. This meant they could earn money to repay their debts and eventually leave prison.
That's it, prison. Le escucho mucho como el ch, es más como zzz. Once again, very good, could or allowed to, whatever combination that you choose, both could, both allowed to, one could, the other one allowed, whatever is okay. At the end of the day, it's talking about that possibility that they had. So whatever they choose is gonna be just fine. That was until number 5. Let's continue with number 6 is the next paragraph. I would like to ask Lisette from most prisoners until prison. That's the word of the night.
Most prisoners, however, had no money. Even if they paid their original debt, they couldn't leave until they had paid for staying in prison.
That's it. Very good. Let's continue with the next part from some prisoners until, pero no tiene palabrita, until alive. Okay, that goes for Carlos. From some prisoners until alive.
Some prisoners spend years and years in prison, and many stayed to death. Men often brought their families into a prison with them. Their children were allowed work just to keep their family alive.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. You said were allowed, like they had the possibility. Do you agree with that answer, Jean-Claude?
Yes, teacher. I have the same answer.
The same
We're allowed
answer?
to answer.
The W is silent.
Okay.
Okay, but you know, actually it is supposed to be had to. I don't know if maybe any of you has also had to, or everybody got were allowed to.
Teacher, in what number?
Number 7. Kainer, you raise your hand.
Yes, teacher. In my group, we use have to because the man brought his family into prison with them. So we think their family have to work at the same of his parent or the person who has the debt.
Exactly. It was an obligation for them to take responsibility. That was the thing. That's the reason why we have to use the strongest model of the group. Let's put it like that. Thank you, Kainer. Well, we're about to finish. Let's go with the final one that says the English novelist until 1868. That's it.
The English novelist Charles Dickens had to leave school at the age of 12 for this reason. His father was in prison for a debt to a baker, and the young Dickens had to get a job in a factory to help support his family. Debtors' prison were not abolished until 1868.
Very good. And then in this case, thank you. Yes, it's very good. In this case, the text finish is talking about the obligation that they had in order to fulfill that requirement, which was to pay for the debts that prisoners had. Guys, as I was telling you, modals don't change the meaning. You know, it's exactly the same idea. The only difference in this case, although it may look a little bit obvious, is the tense that we are talking about. First of all, now we are talking about past. Probably what are the mini differences, just like to finish the session. Must doesn't have a version in past. If we want to talk about obligation in past, we use had to. It doesn't matter if in present we have must and have to. That we talked about those differences on Friday. Had to is always for an obligation in the past. In this case, it doesn't matter if it is internal or external. We already know that don't have to is talking about you can choose if you do it or don't. The same happens in past. Like it wasn't an obligation. Like it was okay for you to do it or not to do it. And as we already said, could and couldn't, why not, keep on the same line of were allowed or weren't allowed to. Once again, remember that was also plays a role in here in case that there is affirmative, talking about a possibility that existed. So at the end of the day, we keep the same idea, an obligation in the case of had to, a choice with the case of didn't have to, and a possibility with could and be allowed to. Okay? Well, guys, I know that this is already late, but before we finish, I would like to know if you have any questions from this part. Well, I know you're tired. Well, guys, anyway, we will continue working with modals in past. This is not like the final time in this final minute. I can assure you that. Guys, really good job. I know that these 3 exercises were really demanding. Have a really good night. Don't forget to write down your names for the speaking part. Keep that in mind. You have until Wednesday. Okay, let me refresh your memory from here. Don't forget to write down your names. That would be it for tonight. Guys, thank you as usual. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
See you tomorrow, teacher.
Bye, teacher.
Thank you, teacher. See you
Take care,
tomorrow.
everybody.
Hi, teacher.